And welcome back, everyone. Attorney Craig Steger here. So it's time for our mostly daily live stream. Today, I wanted to talk to you about why it's really, really important to get a second or sometimes third or more opinion about your legal case. And I'm going to tell you some examples of why. But before we do so, let's go ahead and get this nonsense out of the way. This live stream is for informational purposes only. It does not constitute legal advice. Viewing or participating in this live stream does not create an attorney-client relationship. So I'm an attorney. For those that don't know, I'm an attorney in Wisconsin, but I also practice in Minnesota and Iowa. So to the extent that I have any comments today, it will generally be limited to what I know about those states. I cannot comment on what the case may be in other states, and I would certainly encourage people to talk to an attorney in your state if you have any specific legal questions. If you have a legal question about a matter that may relate to Wisconsin, Minnesota, or Iowa, feel free to reach out to me. Don't leave questions or comments about a specific legal case in the comments or live chat. If you have just a general question, general comment, feel free to leave it in the chat. I'll be happy to respond to it and answer. If I can't, I may do another video after I have a chance to look at the answer. But general questions, go ahead and throw them in the chat. Leave a comment if you have questions. If you have a specific legal question, talk to a lawyer about that. With that in mind, let's get into today's topic. So most of you have probably at some point in your life gone and gotten a second medical opinion, either for yourself, maybe for a loved one, maybe a parent, a child, whatever the case may be, because you want to make sure that what the doctors are doing, what the diagnosis is, what the treatment plan is the correct one and the best one for your situation or your family member's situation. And that's totally normal, totally understandable, and it's certainly to be encouraged. It's no less true when it comes to legal questions and getting answers and advice to your particular legal situations, especially in matters involving personal injury, auto accidents, car crashes, medical malpractice, slip and falls, trip and falls, things like that, for a couple of reasons. Number one is different lawyers can have very different reactions to a particular set of circumstances as to whether there's a case, and if there is a case, how much it's worth. Second, and maybe more important, is unlike going to get a second opinion for a medical, let's say for a medical diagnosis or medical treatment, it doesn't cost you anything to talk to another lawyer or as many lawyers as you need to about a personal injury case, because they're typically done on a contingency fee basis anyway. And even if not, lawyer will have to inform you if you're being charged for work. Typically, will have to sign a written fee agreement first. So there's no harm in asking unless they specifically tell you that you're going to be charged to visit with them. You can assume that it's going to be free or a complimentary consultation. And if you are calling about an injury case, car accident, things like that, I can guarantee you lawyers want to talk to you, and they're not going to charge you for that initial consult to talk to you about the case. So there's no extra expense in getting another opinion. Um, so so today it's just the beginning of 2025, and so the last couple of weeks I've been doing some year-end review of my work, my cases, and doing some next year planning and looking ahead. And what do I have for caseload? Do I have the resources? Do I have the people in place, the team members in place to do those cases? And so it gives you a really good chance to sit down and look at the cases that you have and have had in the past. And one of the things that really struck me as I was doing that, and why I wanted to talk about this today, is, you know, Of the last 4 big cases that I've had, and by big case, I consider anything that has a settlement value of, let's say, 750,000 or more. Um, of the last 4, every single one of those started out as a case that was thought to have either no value or very little value. One of them, and this was my highest settling case ever, came to me after a couple of other lawyers had looked at the case, and the lawyers concluded there was no case and turned it down. And this person called me up. It was a situation where damages were clear, had a very, very bad injury, but establishing liability was going to be difficult. And I kind of looked at it from a little different way than the prior attorneys had. And I think the other lawyers turned it down because they just weren't quite looking at it from the right angle. I spent some time looking at it, doing some research, talking to other lawyers, and came up with a theory, and it was correct. We got a very, very nice result for that person who almost didn't get anything. If they hadn't kept calling attorneys, he would not have gotten anything. Um, Another case that I'm thinking of, when it originally came in, I thought it was a very minor injury, something that was probably worth, let's say, less than $5,000. But as we got looking at it more closely and got to know the client a little more and studying more, realized that the potential value was a lot more. And that was that was a case that I could have very easily passed on. I'm not sure if I think other lawyers actually did turn the case down. Now that I think about it, before I spoke with this person, and that case has a very, very high value that wasn't obvious at the beginning. Another one I'm thinking of is one that I settled. It was a case that um, I knew had some value early on, but at first it seemed like a um, kind of a low damage, soft tissue whiplash case, which in the Midwest here, you know, are not worth a lot of money, and they're probably not worth a lot of money anywhere. But as we got to looking at the case more and studying it, even though this person didn't have a ton of medical treatment, there was signs and symptoms of something worse going on, and we were able to establish that he had a brain injury. Got him to the right doctors, the right experts, who put all the pieces together, and we settled that one for a very, very high value, way more than it originally looked like it might be worth when we first spoke to that person. And then the fourth one on the list, was um, especially interesting because it came in as a workers' compensation case. And generally speaking, workers' compensation is an exclusive remedy, which means that there is no, the statutes, at least in Wisconsin, for example, Wisconsin, Minnesota, and Iowa are generally such that if you're injured in a workplace accident, your only remedy is the workers' compensation benefits that are typically set forth by statute, administrative rules that kind of cap and limit what your recovery is based on what type of injury you have. Sometimes, if you have the right circumstances, you can assert a claim against someone other than the employer. I think those are usually called third-party claims. And this one, it wasn't apparent initially whether there was any kind of a third-party claim, but as we got looking at it, thinking about it, and studying the evidence more closely, we realized there was, and that one is going to have a very, very substantial settlement value. Now, every case is different, and of course, for every one of these cases, there are a dozen other cases that don't have that situation. But each one of these is cases that I believe um, could have either never gone anywhere or settled way too low if they if the people weren't persistent in talking to attorneys, and if they didn't have attorneys were persistent in looking at the value of those cases and sort of being patient and not feeling pressured to settle at the first sign of money. I think that's a mistake a lot of people make, and including a lot of lawyers actually, I think, make the mistake of getting too focused on the weaknesses or uncertainties of your case rather than leaning into the strengths of your case. And so that's the message today, is to really encourage people. Don't take the first lawyer's answer, the first advice as the final say. Sometimes it is. Sometimes it just is clear on its face that there is no case, or this is what the case is, and this is what it's worth, or these are what the policy limits are. Sometimes that's just the way it is, and 10 lawyers will hopefully come up with the same obvious answer. But most of the time, it's not quite that cut and dried. Um, Liability might be debatable. Who can be sued might be debatable. How the insurance policy applies could be debatable. What are the damages? Which injuries were actually caused by the incident and what may have been pre-existing? What if there's no actual um, what we call objective evidence of an injury? There's no MRI or whatever that shows anything wrong. What do you do in those cases? All of those factors can greatly affect whether someone has a case, and if they have a case, what the case may be worth. And not every lawyer always looks at things the same way. And so there's no harm in talking to multiple lawyers, getting their feedback, and looking around before you make a commitment on which lawyer to take your case. And if you have your case turned down, or someone says, I don't think there's anything here, don't be afraid to ask another lawyer, or as many as it takes, to find out if anyone else has any other ideas, because it does happen. I see it happen quite a bit. So wanted to throw that out there. Um, let's see, anything else? I think that's it. I had a bunch of comments on a video I did last week on adverse possession. I'll probably do some more of those. If people have particular questions or topics that they'd like to have discussed, now the majority of my cases are personal injury type, car accidents, truck accidents, trip and falls, things like that. But I also do a lot of other litigation, property line disputes, will contests, um, real different kinds of real estate disputes, things like that. So I'm happy to try and answer those questions if I'm able to answer those questions, or maybe find an answer and share that in a video. So, all right, well, we'll make this one a little shorter than usual. I appreciate anyone who comes in later and watches it, watches the replay. If you have any questions, drop them in the comments. Otherwise, I'm here most days, most weekdays around 4:30 p.m. Central Time. If you'd like to catch the next live stream and ask a question, ask me anything you want. Doesn't have to be about the topic at hand, but if I can help, if I think I have an answer, I'll go ahead and share that with you guys. So appreciate you watching, and until next time, everyone, have a good one.